On the last episode, I talked about a race that I won but didn't actually win. This time, I'm going to mention a race that I didn't even do at all. And I'll start with the reason why I didn't do it. It was because I didn't pay on time. So there's a lottery system for running events in China. What that means is you register, and then a few weeks later or a month before the race or whatever, they draw lots, and then they tell you if you got a spot. What I didn't note was that there are two sub methods of this method. So one is where you pay in advance, and then if you don't get your lot drawn, then they refund your money. And then the other one is you pre-register, and then if you get your lot drawn, they notify you, and then you have to pay within a week or whatever. So I was flipping through my 600 text messages that I always have whenever I look at my text messages. And there was one that was like, "Oh, congratulations, your lot was drawn for this marathon. It's a half marathon, actually." And then I didn't read the second sentence, which was, "Please pay before April, whatever." And then I was looking in my marathon app called Mara. That's the one most people use in China. And it said that my registration was canceled. I was like, what? I really wanted to do that one. So then I looked at the whole text message, and it said to pay. And then, yeah, I called customer support, and in their defense, they were actually quite good. A lot of customer support for these things. I don't know about other countries, but yeah, you're lucky if someone answers. I'll just put it that way. And so that's why I didn't end up doing this half marathon. Now I can tell you about what it actually is, because it's actually a pretty cool one. It's the first full half marathon, like the first half marathon where the entire way they have robots. Yeah, so you can run with robots. And they did it last year for the same one, but only for the last few hundred meters. So like the final stretch, they had robots that could run. And this year is the first time that from start to finish, it's robots all the way. And there are like bipedal robots and then quadrupedal robots. And basically, teams can design a robot and submit it as a competitor in the race. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And I really wanted to do this one, but I goofed up, and that's a reminder to pay closer attention to these notifications for future races. At the same time, it was supposed to be last weekend, but it wasn't held because there was a huge windstorm in Beijing. And you might have heard that, but it wasn't as crazy as they showed on the news. Maybe in some parts, but they just showed the crazy parts. In most of the city, it was a windy and kind of cold day, but too windy for robots, apparently. They would be getting blown all over the place. Yeah, there were lots of like bike share bikes all over the place, and branches torn off trees and stuff. So um, there were times where it got pretty windy, and the Olympic park that I train at was closed, so I didn't get to do my long run that weekend. And all of the races for that weekend were pushed to the next weekend, which means that I probably wouldn't have been able to do it anyway, or at least it would have been really hard because I have another one on Sunday. Oh, I guess I would make it the same day. Yeah, I'd have to choose one or the other. And then there are other half marathons on that day. Yeah, these 2 weeks, there are lots of them, so they all get crushed together. I'm sure that a lot of people will have to choose one or the other. And but that's another great thing about trail running is you don't have to do the whole lottery system. You basically just register and you get a spot. And I guess I will hold out for the first full marathon with robots. So that's called the Yizhuang half marathon with robots. Yizhuang is just a place name in Beijing.
So they already decided when the first full marathon of robots will be?
No, I've decided for them that I'm going to
Oh,
be in it.
perfect.
Yeah. This one, I think they're holding another one in October. It's really popular. A lot of people wanted to get spots. And I saw other people like giving out uh, lots for this half marathon as like prizes for contests and stuff like that. Yeah. So it was really hard to get a spot. And I managed to get one, but then made a stupid mistake and didn't actually pay on time, which is a really embarrassing reason to not do it. But lessons learned.
Yeah. And I guess you mentioned the windstorm and being canceled. So something I'm very curious about. Maybe technology cannot tell us yet. Maybe it's just an open question. But do robots hate running in the rain and wind as much as humans do?
I don't think they've developed the technology to the point where they have that experience yet.
Okay.
They're still working on the, okay, let's finish this half marathon without falling over. And probably they'd be falling over even without the wind.
Makes sense. And I guess a lot of robot questions today, but is there also like an award or I guess category for first place robot if people build their own robots?
I don't know how they do the awards for the robots. Since it's the first time, I imagine it's just kind of like a finisher prize. Because making a robot that's super fast probably isn't safe for everybody.
Right.
So
I've seen robot
maybe they
wars
should
on
make that a
TV.
separate race where they're just crashing
Yeah.
into each other. But since there are people and robots running together, I think that at least my assumption or my imagination is that they would set it at a certain pace, and if they can keep it at that pace for the whole race, then it's a success. It's not necessarily about winning for the robots; it's more about
Right.
actually being able to do
Yet.
it. Yet, yeah.
Interesting.
The next
Okay.
step up from that is pod races
Next
by
time,
robots, of course.
uh, I will attend as Subaru.
Okay, so that's
Wow.
all for the Yizhuang half marathon with robots and without me. I hear you did a pretty wild race this past weekend.
Yeah, this past weekend was one of the most wild run experiences of my life. I know I've
Okay.
had said some crazy things before, but this is unforgettable. Um, Spoiler alert, the ending might not be the happiest of endings. But it's not sad. But anyways, I could just get to the story. So I've been in Vietnam the past few weeks, 3 weeks in a row, full marathons. Was feeling great, training a lot, and then pumped. This past Saturday in Cheongju, which is a city kind of in the middle-ish of I guess couple hundred kilometers south of Seoul, about that. There's a place called Cheongnamdae, which is kind of like it was an old resort for the president to really simplify things. The president would go there and just relax, go fishing or whatever. It's a big resort area. Now it's open for the public. People go in. It's beautiful. And for some reason, they made a 100-kilometer race there. I went last year, and even that is another wild story. Maybe one day, if I have nothing else to talk about, I'll talk about my first time there. But yeah, it was a great race. There's a 16-hour time limit, which is very different than the other 100 kilometers I mentioned before, because this one also has lots of hills. It's all on road, but considering the time limit, this is considered to be one of the hardest 100-kilometer runs in Korea, just because you always have to, oh, we have another hill. We want to walk and go slow, take a break, but we don't have time. We got to get in the time limit, and they're strict. So if you finish in 16 hours and 20 minutes, no medal. And the bus back to Seoul is set to leave about 16 and a half hours after the race starts. Spoiler alert, last year I missed the bus. I finished on time, but I didn't know the bus was leaving so soon. And anyways, that's another story for next time. So I was coming for this race. And Friday afternoon, I was still in Da Nang in Vietnam, and I walked to the airport around noon, and it was 33 degrees. Starting to get warm. I had my bags, sweating a lot. I sweat so much I had to change when I got to the airport because it was warm and sweaty and hot. And then I was in the plane, got to Korea. On the way back, I went to say hello to there's a restaurant near my house. The owner, he runs marathons, and he said, "No, sit down and have food." And oh, I've got to go to a race tomorrow, but I can't say no. So I got home about 2 a.m. and I have to leave at about 8:30 a.m. to catch the train, catch the subway to go to the bus to go to the city. And so I ended up getting maybe 5.5 hours of sleep. Um, Quickly got my things together. Got I got to the bus, so then rode the bus. So I was maybe 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours on the bus, as well as about 5 hours on the plane the night before. So I spent a lot of time sitting. So I was not like being limber as much as I should have. Um, and now this race starts at 4 p.m. and we run until 8 a.m. the next day. So it's just a very, very easy to be tired. Maybe I had about 30 minutes of sleep on the bus, but I was pretty tired and it was 4 p.m. and I'm getting ready to leave. And the weather was beautiful. I also did not check the weather forecast at all at any point before this race. They send texts with updates. Someone I know who was running, thankfully, he passed on the message. They said rain is expected. Bring waterproof clothes. So on my way to the airport in Vietnam, I got like a very thin rain poncho kind of thing for like really cheap, 10,000 Vietnamese dong, not anything fancy. So that's all I really had other than my dinosaur costume. And about 2 minutes before the race starts, it starts to rain a little bit. And I'm thinking, okay, this isn't too bad. It's just a little shower. And yeah, it wasn't too bad. And it stopped. We were running. It was great. There were so many cherry blossoms left. Usually, I think it rains early and they die before this time of year. But I actually got to see them and run with them. It was fantastic. I was so happy about that. And it was going well. I was going really fast. It's quite possible near the end I was on a pace where I could bonk out pretty hard and regret my decisions, but I was running well, really, really doing well in this race compared to last year and feeling great. I was in my dinosaur costume with my sandals and my flute, doing my usual thing and having a great time. And then things started to change a little. So about 30 kilometers in, it started to rain a lot more. And evening was coming and it kept raining and raining. And then, yeah, it was starting to get a bit cold too. And I had no idea what the temperature was, but I can confirm that it was colder than 33 degrees, which it was, it's colder than Vietnam for sure. And yeah, so it was starting to rain quite a bit. So I had um, my rain poncho. I had a way to store it in the tail, so I kept like bending down, pulling it out, putting it back in whenever the rain would start and stop. It was on and off rain, but from 30 kilometers, it was constant rain, and it slowly started to get more and more and more. And then it was really cold by 50K. And at 51 kilometers, there's a like a food station, and you can sit down and eat, have some more food, and here lots of people gave up. It was getting really cold now. The wind was really strong. So the rain was going like completely sideways. It wasn't like big, heavy rain, but lots of little small raindrops. And just if you're running 100 kilometers for 16 hours, it really gets to you mentally and physically, of course. But yeah, lots of people were dropping out here, but I was still feeling great. I was way ahead of my time from previous years. And this is where problems started to start. So three times I departed from the halfway point to keep running, and all three times my sandal was so wet that the Velcro came undone. And as soon as I started running, and it wouldn't stick anymore because there was so much rain on the Velcro. And I tried like elastic and tape, and all kept coming off. Three times I started running, and are you kidding me? So it took 30 minutes to get past this checkpoint. And I still had lots of free time. I was doing well. In the end, I kind of tied it in a loop and squeezed it. It was a bit tight, and probably I would have been uncomfortable and feeling some pain by the end. But I just wanted to go, and I considered I can just take it off, run barefoot the last 10K if I need to. I get to the 62K point, and at this point, I realize I'm crazy. I'm not normal, which you could have guessed from dinosaurs and sandals and that. But what made me realize that is it turned into hail. Like, actually, my skin hurts every time this hits me. I'm getting pummeled in the face by hail, 60 kilometers in this run. And now it's dark, it's nighttime, getting close, it's around midnight and I'm there alone. I'm passing people. I'm in such a good mood. And every time I pass them, I play the flute and I play more songs that I'm running past, and they're like, "Who is this crazy, crazy man?" And I said, "Ha, he's a dinosaur. He's a robot." But yeah, so they was getting more serious. And then after about 60K, I remember looking at some of the street lights and thinking, this rain is really weird. It doesn't hurt like hail anymore, but wait a second, is that snow? And no, it can't be. It's April 12th. There's no, April 13th. There's no way this could be snow. There's cherry blossoms. And after running another hour, there was actually snow piled up on the ground. And it was really cold. And at the 62-kilometer point, they said, oh, it's about 1 or 2 degrees now. And in the next few hours, it's expected to be below zero. Lots of snow. It keeps snowing. It's getting really cold and windy. And everybody is like crashing. Even if the weather is good, this is a very hard race. But for some reason, I still feel great. And I've never felt this excited about a run. I don't know why, where I had this magic from. But right from the 70, about 73, 74-kilometer mark is the hardest part. Then there's the steepest hill, just like 300-meter uphill, and then downhill, and it's really hard from there. And I knew that from last year. I was so excited for that. And I was really, really pumped. And I got to the 74, the the checkpoint there, and ready to just quickly eat and just go and power through and rock this. When unfortunately they said race has been canceled, race has been canceled, because there was so much snow and it was very hard for anyone to see, including cars. And it's a very narrow road up that mountain. So I do understand for safety, if cars are driving up, they could easily kill any of us, even if we have lights. It's 2 in the morning. So such low visibility, so much snow going up this tiny narrow road where there's no pedestrian way anyways. So I understand why it had to be canceled. But of course I was very, very bummed. And I was at such a high at that point. And then so I I guess I haven't really accepted that it's over. I know that it's over, but I said no, I'm not done. So I we get back, we take a bus or cars back to the starting point, but the bus to take us back to Seoul isn't scheduled to come until 8:30 a.m. and it's about 3 a.m. So I said, well, I've done 77 kilometers, so looks like I should spend some time in this parking lot. And I just started running laps around the parking lot and trying to get to the goal. And then after that, the rain and snow completely stopped and the weather was perfect. So if we waited half an hour, it would have been beautiful. So that made me feel even worse. Like, oh, if we just waited a little bit. And so in the end, I completed 93 kilometers there, but they had the bus come early. So I got on the bus, came back to Seoul, and I walked 7 kilometers in Seoul. So technically, I did 100 kilometers, but it was unofficial. I have no actual results. And in the end, only 4 people completed the race before the race was canceled, which was very disappointing for many people. But overall, a crazy experience. Snow, hail, rain, when it was supposed to be like more than 10 degrees even at night and warm and hot. And a great welcome back to Korea for me. The end.
I'd just like to say that I think the reason why you were feeling so good after the rain and hail and snow was that that was the point where you went insane.
I think so. I didn't mention it. I probably shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't mention it. But anyone who's run an ultra or even a full marathon will know you start talking to yourself sometimes. Like you to motivate yourself. You go full David Goggins, is what I'm saying. And I know I'm not
Lots of
Korean,
swearing.
but kind of. And what I was saying, I was like I guess, Korean David Goggins. Like I was saying things in Korean, like what David Goggins would say, and I would just in the middle of yell, kind of like, oh yeah, and completely alone in a dinosaur costume. Like there's houses in the dark on the street, people are sleeping. I'm just like, yeah, and
Yep,
yeah, it's
you're
just
insane.
really weird. Yeah. So yeah, there's a point where and of course, I think maybe after that big hill, I would have completely crashed because I don't think I could keep up that excitement for another few hours, maybe another hour or two. So I think it's quite possible I would have completely crashed at the end and walked the last 10K again. Who knows? But up until the point the race was canceled, I was crazy, feeling it, just yeah, loving life.
Okay. Um, Question about the race.
Yes.
Why don't they make the cutoff time longer? Is there a reason for that?
That's a very good question. I don't know. Maybe this is a really strong maybe, and I think it's so easy to work around. But the place itself, the like the old presidential residence, is very popular for tourists. So
Okay,
having buses get in there during operating hours can be very stressful, and there's
that's the
traffic.
reason.
That's the only possible reason I can really think of. Just they might say that, but even then, that's so easy to work around, in my opinion, and I think anyone else's opinion.
Like, you don't think that they want to make it more challenging to get that reputation of being like the hard 100K to finish within the allotted time?
I think it might be because they have a special list here of people who finished at least 10 times and a special list of sub 10-hour finishers, which is very rare to have. This year, the only people who were able to complete the race finished in under 10 hours because it was canceled around then.
10
Um,
hours? That's
yeah,
crazy.
100K with some nice hills. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and see, I think they really want to keep this. Like, oh, it's such a good challenge. This is the hardest run. I think they want to keep that kind of
Well, then
title,
don't
but I
cancel it in
don't
the
know
middle of it.
exactly.
Keep it
Exactly. Or
challenging.
they gave, yeah, in my opinion, and I'm not a race organizer. I know there's logistics, people volunteering here and there, but so we got to the 75-kilometer mark, 74, 75, and the main problem was going up the big hill next. There's low visibility and stuff. So, in my opinion, okay, how about I go from 75 back to 64 and back again? So now I'll be at about 95, 96, and then just make me run a few more kilometers. And okay, we skip the hill, but it's safe. I still ran 100K. And that's what I would do. Like, oh, we already have people at the previous aid station and this one. So how about just go back and once? That's an extra 22-ish kilometers, and then run a few
Mm.
more, and then we still meet the requirement of 100K. Is how I would have addressed that situation, rather than just saying no to everyone.
Yeah. Or if you're gonna cancel it, at least do it the day before, not during the race.
Because yeah, there were some people who they passed that big hill already, and now it's just downhill back to the start line. It's easy. They already passed the dangerous part,
Yeah.
and they weren't allowed to finish. So I think for them, they must have been so upset.
So you have all these terrible conditions that you're trying to run in, and they don't cancel it until after what, like 10 hours.
Exactly.
And then in Beijing, there's a little bit of wind, and the robots can't run.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't think
Uh,
anyone expected it to be that bad. And I don't think it was that bad. It was pretty bad, but it was survivable. I think many
it's a
people would have
challenge.
definitely not finished. Exactly. That's what we're here for. Like 100K is already a big challenge. So we're here
You're
for
already
that reason.
crazy anyway.
Exactly. If you want to give up, go for it. But if you want to go to the end, go for it, is what I would say.
And they didn't reschedule it for a few
Nope.
weeks in the future?
So
No.
yeah, completely off. So that's also kind of a bummer. Like, oh, I spent money on this. I planned my schedules around this. Now I have, like I told in this podcast before, I mentioned my goal is to complete 500 Ks this year. Well, there goes one chance. I technically didn't finish, so that's a big bummer.
Hmm. Well, you did finish on your terms, but not officially.
That's true. And the moving time was still about 14 and a half hours for me. So I'm content. Well, I'm not really happy about it, but I'm content. I'm satisfied.
And you still definitely did an ultra marathon.
Yes, yeah. So some people have asked, can you at least give us certificates for 50K? Which I think makes sense because they all completed 50K.
Yeah, that'd be fair.
Yeah, yeah. There was a runner who has never run a full marathon. That was interesting.
What?
Yeah,
They let them run?
she has run one half marathon and never a full. And she was just so much faster than me. And at the
For how
beginning,
long?
yeah. And I guess I didn't notice when I passed her because she put on a rain jacket and looked different. But reading Instagram later, I guess her goal with her friends was only to run until 50K. was their goal. And I guess it was kind of like just a fun group run. Like, oh, well, let's try and run 50 kilometers of this 100-kilometer run. So some people, interestingly, they don't go in with the intention of finishing the race. They kind of create their own
Mm.
terms. I will only run 50. I met someone else who said, oh, I'll try and go 70 this year. So interesting approach. There are also other races where you can sign up for 50 and 70 instead of this
Yeah,
one, but
exactly. Why not just
yeah,
do that?
exactly. But yeah, maybe it's an interesting experience to go to this location. It's a nice, beautiful location. Before the rain, the pictures are beautiful. Lots of cherry blossoms as you're
Mm.
running, so that was very nice. And the pictures are free.
Mm. Okay, that's it for this week's episode, which was brought to you by non-aerodynamic robots and
And
storage tales.
yes, as well as the perfect culmination of cherry blossoms and snow.